Hey guys, Ryan from the Melbourne Centre of Healing here. Today we're going to talk about trauma, mainly generational trauma. So we're all aware of traumas in our individual lives. What I'm talking about now is trauma that spans generations, sometimes 3, 4, 5, 10 generations deep. We always see this, people with alcoholism and suicide. It gets passed down from the father to the son, from the son to his son to his son, and we see these patterns repeating. It can be depression, it can be drug abuse, it can be sexual abuse, it can be so many of these things, but it's clearly being passed down as a trauma. And I'd like you to think of it, if you imagine a timeline, right? So a timeline that goes like this, and it spans hundreds of years, even 1,000 years, right? And so you have this timeline, there's generation, just spanning over a very long period of time. And then this generational trauma is like a dark cloud, like a big dark cloud or dark entity that hovers over the timeline. And then what happens, the humans sort of become the conduit for this trauma to play out. And it plays out from generation to generation to generation to generation. And you just see this pattern of the same things repeating over and over again. Now what happens when people become conscious of this and realize that, hey, this has been a pattern going back, God, I don't even know how long, then I've been dealt a pretty shit hand to come into this life with this trauma, this same thing that keeps getting passed down, and now I have to go through it. Whilst on the surface, yes, that can seem like a pretty shit situation, what I like to tell people is, you've got an amazing opportunity. Because this trauma plays out through people over and over again, and people are largely unconscious of the process. And people will go through their life playing out unconscious trauma and then passing it on to their kids, and the cycle repeats and repeats and repeats with no conscious awareness of what's happening. Then all of a sudden we come to this person who has now become aware and conscious that this has been a pattern throughout their genealogical line, and they're not happy about it. Why this is an opportunity is because consciousness, awareness is the first step to healing. You would agree that it would take a very strong person to be able to break this big dark cloud, this dark entity of trauma that's been going for hundreds of years, correct? You probably are the first one in that whole line that's become fully conscious and aware of it. This is an incredible opportunity because you can be the one, you can have this mission and this purpose to break this trauma, to break this dark energy, to break this entity, not just for you in this life, but now I want you to imagine this timeline spans hundreds of years, even 1,000 years into the future. And all of a sudden, where you stand along this timeline right now, that big dark cloud that hovered over the generations before you stops. If you address the trauma, if you go through the work, if you take on the responsibility and the mission with your shield and your sword to address and process this trauma, you not only then get to heal your life, but all of these generations to come, which is bloody amazing in my opinion. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it's tough work, but it's an incredible opportunity as well. The greater the challenge, the greater reward on the other side of it. And yes, you might have trauma spanning back hundreds of years that have been passed down to you, and that is rough. I agree, that is not fair. But that is a challenge that if someone addresses and gets past, can stop that dark cloud in its tracks, and then every single generation to come after that, my God, you are doing such a service to the world. It is truly amazing. You're essentially raising the consciousness of the entire planet in your own way. So that's a little video on generational trauma and how we can reframe it from being a very bad thing to become conscious of, to then understanding that the next challenge that awaits us can be of a giant reward to everyone moving forward from there.